43W555 Old Oaks Road. And I'll be referencing the annexation agreement, page 6, section 3, it's titled Roads and Highways. Carter Road and Route 47 is inadequately prepared for this project. Route 47 is a 55-mile-per-hour, 4-lane, heavily traveled road, and once the I-88 interchange is complete, its traffic is expected to increase even more. This intersection already sees, according to FOIA, an average of 3 accidents per year. Carter Road has no ingress and egress to the property and a blind curve before the proposed entrance. This poses a hazard with slowing trucks turning into and accelerating trucks turning out of the property. And if you'll reference section 9, part B, construction delivery standards, you'll see that they are forcing trucks to only exit left or east onto Carter Road. Add to this slick surfaces from mud and truck wheel washing and you have a recipe for disaster. Although Heartland states that they won't interfere with the school's bus traffic, there is no plan for this in the annexation agreement. As it stands, their current operational hours will indeed affect school bus traffic, both AM and PM. Additionally, Carter Road has the highest volume in the village of young, inexperienced drivers traveling to the high school and Waubonsee. These very drivers are the ones that are most at risk of accidents. Even though Heartland's traffic study states that this road is adequate for this project, that will be of absolutely no comfort to parents who have lost their child in a fatal auto accident. We don't need a fancy traffic study, we only need to use common sense, folks. This alone should be a deal breaker for Heartland. For goodness sake, we cancel after-school activities and park district activities tonight because of a few inches of snow, yet we're going to deliberately add 70 heavy trucks per day across from the school. I would also like to quickly point out that although Heartland stated they would no longer be crushing concrete at this facility, it clearly states in their operational plan that they will crush when necessary. So, which is it? Will they or won't they? Also, the statement, no asphalt shall be accepted at this facility, should also be in the annexation agreement as well for legal reasons. Forgive me if I don't take their word for it. Thank you.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Amy Kraus, 263 Capitol Drive, and I live in Sugar Grove. One of the people that obviously doesn't, so. My biggest point at every one of these meetings has been about the IPEA and the EPA. Heartland has stated that everything's going to be consistently taken care of. It'll be watched, it'll be tested. I want to remind everybody about the Daily Herald report. 4 and 5 Illinois debris sites are high in toxins. Now, they said they're going to have everything tested. This weekend's Tribune, front page, had a whole article about how the IPEA and the EPA are falling down on the job. I brought page 11 because there's some quotes in here. Lisa Madigan, I have been dismayed by the sudden drop-off in the number of IEPA referrals to my office. Without those referrals, nothing is done. So in downstate Mahomet, where there's now natural gas bubbling up through their water, took 10 months. It wasn't even the IEPA, they ignored it. It was the DNR that had to start it. This is the kind of thing that will happen here. We will not be watched because little by little, as this article states, there is a drop in enforcement because the EPA and the IPEA are rolling back. The EPA is pushing things to the states. Our state does not have enough IPEA officers. The Chicago office said it has become more difficult to file cases under Pruitt, EPA, who is an Oklahoma Attorney General, challenged federal clean air and water regulations. The new person picked by Pruitt to lead Chicago's outpost, Kathy Stepp, former Wisconsin state official, rolled back enforcement of anti-pollution laws while serving under Scott Walker. This is what we would be looking at. Do we want our water ruined? Do we want our air ruined? Do we want the lawsuits that are going to follow? Do we have the money for that? I don't think so. I personally don't want to see my taxes go up. I moved here because I love Sugar Grove and love being out here. And the website says, sweet place to live. It's not going to be sweet if we have this kind of thing happening. Thank you.
Board members, I'm Brandon Matthews. I live at 4S916 Sugar Grove Parkway, which is the house directly north of the property here. 20 feet from the property line, as a matter of fact. My first statements are in reference to the annexation agreement, kind of what would be at the end of the project here. So assuming this goes through and they do the reclamation, this would be what the end result would be. And I have some issues with a couple of items that were listed there. The first of which is the height of elevation, up around 735 to 740 feet. My house sits at 710 feet. That height elevation would be about 250 feet estimated from my house. So it is going to be a 12% grade from the middle of that property to my house, with a drainage ditch between, according to the land, the LROIT, the land exhibit. You don't build your house at the bottom of a hill, right? That's basic common sense, something that I'm very concerned with. I'm not so much worried about the drizzly rain that may occur. I'm more worried about the sudden downpours that we all get around here, where the water falls in excess of an inch an hour. The current stormwater prevention plan that is listed, based on county regulations, only accounts for the first 3/4 of an inch of rain. I think we all know that we get more than that at one time, right? Stands to reason. Another item I'd like to bring up is in their annexation agreement, it states that they will not mine below 706 feet of elevation, which is the top of the pond water level, okay? That's all fine and good, but as part of the plan, they plan to drain the pond and move it to a different retention pond. Well, now you're going to be filling in the current aquifer. You are going to be filling in where there is now a pond, which is in the aquifer. While the well that currently feeds my house is no longer 16 feet deep, it was that way since the 60s, up until 3 years ago when we had a new well done. 16 feet below the basement of my house, fed my house for all those years. A couple of other notes that I had here is, I'm sorry for bouncing around, you think I'd be better at this as many times as I've done this. We're talking about air quality. There's been a good doctor who's presented on air quality multiple times. In fact, as part of the public record, she submitted articles. We're talking about trucks running over there 8 hours a day, trucks and equipment. As a professional mechanic myself, I'm well versed in emission standards and how they have changed in the diesel industry substantially. How new is this equipment that these folks are operating? Black smoke tends to pour out of excavating equipment a lot. That's going to be coming right over top of my house. I have asthma, have had it since I was 2 years old. The fellow earlier has mentioned that gravel pit's been next to my house my whole life. Is that maybe why I have it? Does that mean that my kids, 6 and 4, should get it because it's beneficial for the property, so this gentleman says? Another thing here, and I'll wrap up with this. I'm reading from the Illinois Safe Water Drinking Act, which provides state government's primary authority for implementation. Illinois also has requirements to ensure groundwater is of good quality when it's being used as a source of drinking water. My house and the school, if I'm not mistaken. The fundamental requirement is no person shall cause, threaten, or allow the release of contaminant to groundwater so as to cause a groundwater quality standard set forth in the subpart C. I have this if you guys are interested in it. But the main word there is threaten. The last part, there are Illinois specific requirements for regulated recharge areas which protect groundwater sources in areas where groundwater is susceptible to contamination. For example, facilities or operations that could pose a risk to the groundwater. Example, a municipal solid waste landfill. These places cannot be located within a delineated regulated recharge area. Additionally, counties and municipalities utilizing a groundwater, or utilizing a community water supply are authorized to establish maximum setback zones up to 1,000 feet around their wells. Setback zones, as the name implies, are areas where certain operations are restricted, facilities and activities could pose a risk to the groundwater. While I may not be a county and municipality, I am a private well. I reached out to the Illinois EPA to try and get clarification on this via voicemail and email. They haven't yet to get back to me, but I promise you when they do, I will let you know. The last thing is, gentleman alluded to it earlier. I'm about done. He's right. I don't have a vote when it comes to the village. But I hope that everybody here remembers how this board votes tonight. And
Kind of made my day when you guys all raised your hands. My name is Victoria Delmer. I live at 4S 501. My comments that I had were really about your annexation agreement and the lack of clarification in some of those issues. You referenced on page 5 of your agreement, section 2F, to a waterworks master plan. And I searched all over the village website and I could not find it. I assume it's available through Freedom of Information Act. I put out, like a lot of the people here, about 20 of those in the last 5 months. I didn't put out one for that. Regardless, it pertains to this project, and I really think it should be available on the village website for people to look at. And the reason behind that is that your reference in the section in the amendment to a shallow groundwater resource that the village has targeted for an additional water supply, which I agree with. It's a great water over there. I've got a pond behind my house of the same water. It's the same spring. It's crystal clear all the way to the bottom. We all sat and listened to Heartland's geologists at the last meeting in excruciating detail about the deep aquifer and how it was going to take 50 years for these contaminants to reach that. First of all, 50 years doesn't really comfort me. The house that I live in is 130 years old. And 50 years comes a lot faster than you think, and I hope that you can take that into account. And we're not talking about the deep aquifer that's 300, 400 feet down. We're talking about the shallow aquifer that is right there and filling it up on the assumption that a company whose track record isn't the greatest, or they're going to do exactly as they were told. When a quick Google search of CCPD sites comes up with violations, hazards, and you can try and mitigate that and say, oh, well, the EPA did this and it's not really that serious. That's what they're there for. That's what they do their testing for. And one last thing, the other part of your section, and God, I hope it doesn't come to this because I hope it won't. I drove over to their facility last weekend after the last planning commission meeting on a Sunday. The facility was closed. And I drove around the entire property of what was legally accessible because I didn't think a trespassing charge was going to hurt my argument. And every perimeter that I could access on that facility is filthy. It is littered with trash. It was one of the filthiest properties I've ever seen. And I'm from California, and that's saying a lot. The mess wasn't new. It was old. It had been there for a while. And this was on a Sunday. Everything was shut down, secured, done for the week. This is their idea of maintenance. This is their idea of what is acceptable. In addition to the trash, 20 feet from the outside of their entrance is a thin, caked layer of mud. It was dry. And yes, you can tell a sweeper goes over it, but it went 20 feet in every direction from there. All it was waiting for was about, I don't know, 15 minutes of rain to turn it into a big slick mess. That facility is on an access road, about 1.5 miles from the nearest residence, that all seem to be turning the other way. They don't use that access road. This is in front of the school, in the middle of the school zone. I don't know if everybody realizes this. The entrance to that is in the middle of the school zone. It's in the middle of the school zone, and 70 trucks. You're depending on somebody's word. We don't want their word, we want it in writing. I hope this doesn't come to this, but Heartland's word isn't going to cut it.
We moved here from Chicago in 1967 to Aurora. We moved to, I'll call it rural Sugar Grove outside the city limits in 1968. We lived in the same house since 1972, and we love it. We love the village of Sugar Grove. When we talk about Sugar Grove, they say, what a nice name, it must be a nice town. Now, remember, Route 47 is the main entrance to Sugar Grove. It's the main exit to Sugar Grove. Everybody who comes into Sugar Grove, the first thing they're going to see is the dump. When they leave Sugar Grove, the last thing they're going to see is the dump. Sugar Grove will be known as the town with the dump. When you call your real estate broker to sell your house and you say, it's in Sugar Grove, they're going to say, the town with the dump. And you're going to have to say yes. And they're going to say, well, knock 20 grand off your price. And where's my 20 grand going? To these people who want to put it in their pocket. Where's everybody's 20 grand going? Do you folks want your legacy to be that you turned Sugar Grove from a nice, quiet village to the town with the dump? I can't imagine that anybody in their right mind would want their name on the plaque that says, the dump, voted for by, and your name. Now, Heartland would have you believe that this is the only alternative. The last meeting I was at, someone spoke about a park in Naperville. I'm going to speak about a park in Batavia. Anybody here heard of Quarry Park? Quarry Park. Why aren't we talking about turning this into a quarry park? Then it would be Sugar Grove, the town with the park. Not Sugar Grove, the town with the dump. We heard about the traffic and the truck drivers. The truck drivers are independent contractors. They're not, or Heartland will not be responsible for what the truck drivers do, because they are independent contractors. They're getting paid by the load, and we've all dealt with the dump trucks going up and down Highway 47. None of us like it. I'm going 45, 50 miles an hour. I've got a 20-ton truck 15 feet behind me, and you're going to add 140 more routes or 140 more loads? That can't be. Again, do you want your legacy to be that you turn Sugar Grove into the town with the dump? At Quarry Park, they've got a plaque. It lists the people who had the foresight to preserve that piece of property. Maybe we'll get a plaque outside the dump with the names of the people who voted for it. The next question I have is, I just 10 seconds. Is anybody who's going to vote involved in the construction industry or have relatives in the construction industry and wants to be voting with that conflict of interest? We've heard how this is going to help the construction industry and the local construction industry. Anybody who's going to vote who's in the construction industry should recuse themselves. Thank you.
My fellow citizens, I'm bringing in 3 phases: health, wealth, and options. I was a guy who actually trained for Ironman for many years around the neighborhood. So my travel days around Sugar Grove, 50, 60 miles at a pop, sometimes 100. I've seen everything, every part of our neighborhoods. One thing I have seen traveling by on my bike is the dust. One thing I did avoid on some of the travels out towards the area, there was really high dust. As a guy and a biker, being on the bike, it was one of those I would stop and wait until the trucks zip by and then pass on through. But as you pass on through, you see every nook and cranny of the neighborhood. So I can tell you what parts of the neighborhood were clean and what parts were not so clean. But I will say, in that view of our neighborhood, if we can keep the trucks down, it'd be a great attribute. I will say the truck drivers are nice to me. I'm passing me by at about 50, 60 miles an hour with my heart beating, but it was something interesting every time I passed by that area. I will say from the other options of health, I also dealt with the local Boy Scouts. Took them on hikes, many areas in our neighborhood. Knowing that we could possibly turn that place into something, I would say be a great option for even just the Boy Scouts, and Girl Scouts, include them in. Now the wealth part. I know the neighborhood's always looking to bring up new things. We're happy to see Culvers. My kids were excited to see Culvers come in. Thank you. That was a good thing. But also seeing growth in the town in the right way. Looking for more business to come in, restaurants, yes, we want to see it all. And I understand we're gonna have fill one way or another to put somewhere. But then there's the options I was thinking about. We can turn that into a park. Remember I said I was an Ironman in training? When I go to the other parks, a lot of the people who train for Ironman swim there for hours. They'll pay the money to go and swim. If you have a place like that here, if you turn into something like that, you will have people willing to pay and train and go there as an option. I'll give you another option. You want to do something big for the community? What if we put an aquaponic farm there? Grow with fish, grow vegetables. Do something as an option for the neighborhood. A healthy option, rather than a fill place that somebody would be concerned about. Yeah, you could fill some of it, level it out, make it nice and green. You can have the Cub Scouts there, you can have the training going on there, you can have the farm going there. You've got to think bigger than what we're seeing here. I think it can be done. I think you're the right board that can actually see that vision and see the future 10, 15 years from now. Just like the mayor's kid, my kids, same age. I'm thinking of their houses and where they're going to live down the road and say, hey, what are you going to do here in Sugar Grove? I can turn that place into a vineyard if you wanted. There's options. There's so many options that can be done for that area that we, from a community standpoint, we think bigger than out of the box than what a business can do. I think the neighborhood, if we come together, we can put that something into something great. I appreciate it, especially the guys in the room.
Hi, I'm Robert Matthews. I live at 4 South 916. I live on the property right beside that apartment. I just want to keep it brief. I've lived here since 1962. I've got very bad poor lungs. I was there when it was a gravel pit originally. And all the dust, debris, it's terrible. Everything, our streets were just black, and pretty much. But when Brandon was young, that's when they were doing all the dredging. And it wasn't as bad, but it's still real bad. So everybody talks about respiratory. Yeah, it's very much big problem with respiratory. So that's all I want to say.